Hey there, I'm Olivia from BigDreamCrochet, and today I'm going to show you how to make my newest design, the sea glass top. For this project, you'll need weight 3 yarn. I used about 180 grams, but since this pattern is made to measure, you may need more or less yarn than that. I typically wear a US size small, so that should kind of guide you to see exactly how much yarn you may be using. Next, you'll need a 5.5 millimeter hook, scissors for fastening off, darning needles for weaving your ends in, and last but not least, a measuring tape so you can take your measurements. The first step to making the sea glass top is to figure out your measurement A, which is basically just measuring around your bust into the front again. So let me go ahead and show you how to measure. Here's an example of me measuring myself, so you can kind of do the same thing to get your measurement. So once you have your measurement, we need to do a little bit of math to make sure that your top fits the right way, where it's not too loose around your body that, it'll stretch to fit you, so it'll be form-fitting. So this was my measurement after measuring around the center of my bust all the way around my back to the front again. It was 34. So what we're going to do is you need to subtract an inch from your total. So since my measurement was 34, subtracting an inch, I'll go back down to 33 now. And so after you've subtracted that inch from your total measurement, then you're going to divide this new number in half. So for me, half of 33 is 16.5. So right there on that line. So 16.5 would be my measurement A. So for your measurement, subtract an inch from your total measurement and then divide the new number in half. That's your measurement A. So now we are going to begin to start our top. The first thing that we need to do is make a foundation chain that is as long as your measurement A. So for me, I'll need to make a foundation chain that is 16.5 inches long. So to start, you're just going to put a simple slip knot on your hook, whatever way you normally do it. This is just how I do it. It's just easier for me this way. So once you do that, you are ready to start making the chain. Now, the special thing about the chain is that the chain needs to be a multiple of 5 plus an extra 4 stitches as your turning chain. Remember, the chain needs to be as long as your measurement A length. So you'll need to chain multiple of 5 plus 4 to your measurement A length. So some of this will be off screen for you, but I just want to show you. I like to take the start of my chain and place it on the measurement, so 16.5, so right there, and then just kind of straighten it out with the rest of the measuring tape to see how much you have. Okay, so that matches up pretty good for me. And you do want this chain to be a bit stretchy, so if it goes like a little bit over your measurement, that's all right, because the chain is going to tighten up as we put stitches in it. So you'd rather have maybe a little bit of extra room than too little room and the top doesn't fit. Okay, so once we have matched it to your measurement, now we're going to go ahead and get started on the Drunken granny stitch. So I'll go ahead and teach you how to do that. Well, first let me explain. The sea glass top is made completely out of the stitch called the Drunken granny stitch. So it's really similar to the granny stitch, but it like leans side to side. I think that's why they call it the Drunken Granny Stitch. It's a really pretty stitch with a pretty funny name. So the Drunken Granny Stitch is what we will be using for this entire top. So I'm going to go ahead and teach the Granny Stitch to you and show you how exactly to set up your chain. A Drunken Granny Stitch is similar to the Granny Stitch, just like I said before, where it's made up of clusters. So in one stitch, you'll have 3 double crochets, 2 chains, and 1 double crochet. That makes the Drunken Granny Stitch and makes it lean to the side a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So for the first stitch, we're going to skip 5 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and crochet in the 6th chain. So you're going to go ahead, yarn over, and place 3 double crochets in that 6th chain. So 2 for me, 3. Okay, so now that we have our 3 double crochets in the 6th chain, we're going to chain 2. And then we're going to place 1 more double crochet in the same chain as the other double crochets. Okay, so this is the Drunken Granny Stitch cluster right here. It has 3 double crochets, 2 chains, 1 double crochet, all in the same stitch. This is a Drunken Granny Stitch cluster. And this counts as 1 stitch, basically. Okay, so for the next one, we're only going to skip 4 stitches. So let's find the 5th stitch. So skip 1, 2, 3, 4, crochet in the 5th. So just go ahead and yarn over, place 3 double crochets into that chain. Okay, once we have our 3 double crochets, we're going to chain 2 and place 1 more double crochet in that stitch. All right, so that is our second Drunken Granny stitch cluster. Okay, and so now we're just going to repeat down the row, skip 4 stitches. In the 5th stitch, place 3 double crochets, 2 chains, and 1 double crochet. So I'll do the next one with you, and then I'll set you on your way. Okay, so now that we've got the second one done, remember, skip 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, crochet in the 5th, and then place a Drunken Granny Stitch cluster in it. One way I like to remember exactly what's in the cluster is using 3, 2, 1. So we'll have 3 double crochets, right? 2 chains, so that's the 2, and then 1 more double crochet in the chain. So you have 3, 2, 1 right there. So just continue to repeat that down the row until you have 3 chains left, and then I will meet you back there at that spot. Okay, so now I have reached the end of my row. I have 3 chains left, 1, 2, 3. So when you have 3 chains left in the last chain, you're just going to place a double crochet. And then you're going to chain 3 and turn your work. So that was row 1. Now I will teach you the row 2 repeat. Once you know row 2, you will just repeat it for the entire top until we get to the decreasing part. So for row 2, you're going to still work in Drunken Granny Stitch clusters, but you're going to place them in the chain space from the previous row's cluster. So right here, as we can see, this is the Drunken Granny square. Oh my goodness, it's a mouthful to say that. The Drunken Granny Stitch cluster is right here. Here's the chain space. So this is where I'm going to place my new cluster. So I'm going to yarn over and place 3 double crochets in the chain space. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 in that chain space, chain 2, and place 1 more double crochet in the chain space. Okay, and so then you're going to look for the next chain space, which would be right here. This right here, this is not a chain space. This is just the space in between the clusters. You are only working in the chain spaces of the clusters. Okay, if you place one right here, your pattern is going to get all sorts of out of whack. So only work in the chain spaces of the cluster. So now that I've finished the first cluster, I'm going to move on and do the next one. You just place 3 double crochets. Okay, and then 2 chains. And then 1 more double crochet in that chain space. So I'll do the next one with you, but you're just repeating this all the way down until you have no more chain spaces left, and then I'll meet you at the end. But so just to carry on, we'll just find the next chain space right there. Place 3 double crochets, 2 chains, and then 1 double crochet. It's a pretty easy pattern for looking, I'd say, fairly complex. So that's nice. It's a good beginner, I'd say advanced beginner stitch. Okay, so now that we have placed the next Drunken Granny stitch cluster in the chain space, just repeat down the row in every chain space of the Drunken Granny stitch clusters until you are at the end with no more chain spaces. I'll show you what to do. When you reach the end of your row, go ahead and place a double crochet in the starting chain from the previous row. And then once you have that, you will chain 3 and turn your work. Now you are just going to repeat row 2, the row we just did, until your panel reaches the center of your bust. I have a visual example for you. Continue crocheting with the Drunken Granny stitch until your panel reaches about the center of your bust or the bottom of your armpit, that general area. As you're measuring, make sure the bottom lines up with where you want the top to sit when it's all done. But ultimately, you're just going to keep on crocheting until the top row that you just finished working on reaches the center of your bust or the bottom of your armpit area. All right, so as you can see, I have reached the length to where this panel reaches just at the bottom of my armpit or like the center of my bust. So I did about 20, well, I did 20 rows, not about 20 rows. I did 20 rows and I just want to show you how to count rows. I feel like for me, sometimes it can be confusing to count rows where the stitches aren't just like going straight across. Like this is a pretty complex stitch pattern, so I want to show you how I count them. So basically, I just count each of these clusters and I just go up until I reach the top. I just do a little zigzag because you put 1 cluster for each row. So altogether, I have 20 rows here. So you will have a different number of rows or maybe the same, just as long as your panel reaches the center of your bust or the bottom of your armpit, that area, then you are ready to start decreasing. So I'll go ahead and show you how to decrease. All right, so there is no official way to decrease for the Drunken Granny stitch, so I've come up with my own way to eliminate 1 stitch from the side. Basically, we're just trying to move the starting point right here to right here, so that way we can start in this stitch instead of this one. So you have the chain 3 from ending the previous row. So what we're going to do is place a single crochet in the chain space of the next drunken granny stitch. So there we have the single crochet in the chain space. And now what we're going to do is chain 2. Okay, so that's kind of how we have moved the end right here to right here. And now we can start in this chain space instead. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and we're just going to work in the normal drunken granny stitch like we have been doing until we have, I believe, one stitch left, one drunken granny stitch cluster left. So just go ahead and do that until you have one stitch left down the end of the row. You don't need to do anything special for these stitches. We will be decreasing at the end, so just stop when you have one drunken granny stitch cluster left. Okay, so as you can see, I have reached the end of my row with one drunken granny stitch cluster left. This part is really easy. Decreasing on the end is a lot easier than in the beginning. All you're going to do is place a double crochet in the chain space of the next grannies, drunken granny cluster. My goodness, I've stumbled over that phrase so many times. Okay, so now that you have the double crochet in the chain space, see how we kind of move the ending point to right here now? So what we're going to do, chain 3 and turn your work. So we want to decrease one more time. At least that is what worked for me to get the right shaping, is only decreasing twice. The drunken granny stitch clusters are pretty wide, so you don't need a lot of decreasing. I mean, just taking off 2 inches on both sides. I mean, 2 granny square clusters on both sides is taking off, I think, like 4 inches altogether. So I would say start with decreasing less than what you think you need. For me, that only turned out to be 2 rows, and I honestly think that it'll probably work out the same for you as well. But I'll show you what the top is supposed to look like after the decreasing, like exactly where the edge is supposed to lie on your body. So if you feel like you might need more decreasing, wait until I show you where the top is supposed to lie on your body after the decreasing to figure that out. Okay, so for the next row of decreasing, we're going to use the same technique. So we have our chain 3 from the last row, and just like we did at the start, we're going to put a single crochet in the chain space of the next drunken granny stitch cluster. All right, and then we're going to chain 2. And we've now moved our starting point from here to here. So as you can see, we've taken off 2 of the drunken granny stitch clusters. Okay, so we have our chain 2 right there, which is our new beginning spot. And we're just going to crochet as normal down the row until you have one cluster left, just like we did with the last row. So go ahead and start placing your drunken granny stitches until you have one stitch left. All right, I have reached the end of my row with one cluster left. Don't get fooled by this space right here. This is your starting chain from your last round. So this is actually the end of the row, and this is the last stitch that you have to work with. To do is just place a double crochet in the chain space of the last cluster, and then just chain 3 and turn your work. So I'll go ahead and show you where the top now is supposed to lay on your body after the decreasing, so you can decide if you want to add more decreasing, but I really think that 2 should be good enough for most of everybody. So after the decreasing rows, your top should line up with the start of your armpit, like about where the crease is right there. That's when you know that you have decreased enough. So continue decreasing until your top reaches that spot. Okay, so once your top reaches about the top of your armpit, as you have seen in the video, you are ready to start working on the chest area. So the chest area, you're just going to continue crocheting as normal with the drunken granny stitch until you reach the base of your neck. So I'll help you get started, but ultimately you're just going to continue crocheting as normal with your new decreased row until you reach the base of your neck. So we'll just crochet as normal. And you want to make sure that you don't accidentally work on the stitches that you have decreased. So just be aware of when the end of your row is so that you don't accidentally add in a stitch that you are supposed to have decreased. So I'll meet you back at the end of the row just to show you exactly what you're supposed to be doing and what it's supposed to look like. But basically, you're just continuing on until you reach the base of your neck. Okay, so I have reached the end of the first row after decreasing, and as you can see, this is my last stitch here. Remember, this is the starting chain from your previous row, so do not crochet past that. So I'm just going to show you how to end it. You just end it as normally, but I feel like it could be confusing since we have a new end to the row from the decreasing. So just carry on as normal, and then with the starting chain from the previous row, place a double crochet there. There we go. And now that you have that first row after decreasing done, I think it'll be less confusing as less confusing to find the end of your row. So now you're just going to continue up, just crocheting as normal with the drunken granny stitch until your panel reaches the base of your neck, which I will show you in a clip right now, so you have a goal that you are working towards. As you can see, the panel has now reached the base of my neck, so just continue making rows until your panel reaches the base of your neck too. Once you hit this point, I will go ahead and show you what to do next. Okay, so my panel has now reached the base of my neck, so I just want to show you what my panel looks like so far. Yours should look similar. See how it makes this kind of L shape right here? This is what your panel should look like since we have the decrease and then we stopped decreasing and just continued on making rows with the decreased row. So this is what it should look like. And now we're going to move on to making the straps for the tank top. So to make the strap for the tank top, it's a very simple process. Basically, what we're going to do is just choose the amount of uh, stitches we want to use for our strap. So if I use 2 stitches, like that's how wide the strap would be. If I use 3, that's how wide it would be. So I am going to use 3 stitches. So what you're going to do once you figured out how wide you want the straps to be, you just are going to crochet just as normal with the drunken granny stitch. Okay, so I want my strap to be 3 drunken granny stitches wide. So I'm pretty much going to stop here. Let me show you how to end this little row of the strap. So what you're going to do is in this space right here, in between the 2 uh, granny stitches, you are just going to place a double crochet. I didn't go into either one of the stitches. I just placed it in this open space right here. Okay, so now you have the strap for your top. Just chain 3, turn to your work, and we'll continue making some rows of this strap until the strap reaches the top of your shoulder. So, like right next to your neck, where a seam usually sits on any one of your shirts. that is where you will go ahead and stop. I'll show you a picture of exactly where your strap should sit on your body, and you will crochet to that length.
Stop crocheting when your strap reaches the top of your shoulder where a seam in one of your shirts usually sits.
So now that your strap has reached the top of your shoulder, you are just going to make sure that you have one chain at the end right there, and you're going to fasten off because you finished one of the straps. So I'm going to leave a bit of a tail so I can sew up the top using the tail. So now that I have the first strap done, I am just going to move along to the other side, see if I can kind of prop this up to show you. Oh, better idea. Let's just give you a better view. Okay, so right here, remember how I did three stitches for how wide the strap was going to be? Well, now I need to make sure that I count 3 stitches from this side and set up my strap to where I can crochet to the left and only have 3 stitches. So I need to set up right here in the middle. Now you might have more stitches in your strap, you might have less. So do whatever width you need to make sure that there is only that number on the end for your strap. So since I need 3 stitches, I'm going to set up in the space right next to the stitch where I want to start. So see how this is my first drunken granny stitch. So I have 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna set up in this little space in between the two drunken granny stitches right here. It's not the chain space of the next granny stitch, it's the space right in between those 2 stitches. So I'm just going to insert my hook, get my yarn, and leave a tail long enough to where you can weave it in later. So just, whoops, pull through. My yarn split a little bit, but that's all right. Okay, and then just chain 2. I don't know if you can hear all those dogs outside, but that's my dog playing with our neighbor friends. Okay, so we have the chain 2 in this space in between the stitches. Now you're just going to go ahead and place a drunken granny stitch into the chain spaces of the stitch in the previous row.
So I'm just going to help you get started and show you exactly what to do. You're just going to place your 3 double crochets. All right, this is my third one here. And then your 2 chains and 1 more double crochet in the chain space, just like you've been doing for this whole top. Just going to continue that until you reach the end of the row, and you'll place a double crochet in the starting chain at the end of the row.
When you've reached the end of the row, just place a double crochet in the starting chain from the last row, just like normal. Okay, chain 3, and whoopsies, turn your work. It'd be annoying to turn my work with this long tail. Okay, so you're just going to continue making the strap right here on this side until it's even with the other strap. So however many rows you did for this strap, you want to do the same for here. I personally did 5 rows of strap on this side, so I need to do 5 rows of strap right here. Continue making rows until you've reached your personal number of rows that you need to meet the top of your shoulder like you did for this strap. Okay, so now I have both straps done. I have 5 rows of my strap on this side and 5 rows on this side. So I'm completely done with this panel once the straps are finished. So I'm going to just leave a really long tail on uh, the strap so that I can use it to sew well, to sew the whole top together.
So we have now finished the front panel and we need to start working on the back panel, and we're about halfway done with the top. So the back panel is a little bit different. We will try and bring up the neckline on the back panel, but it's almost the same as the front panel. You'll have the same amount of stitches, the same number of rows until you hit the base of your neck. That's where we will do something a little bit different, but go ahead and rewind this video and make a panel identical to the other one and stop when you reach the base of your neck. Don't go past that part. Let me show you what to do.
Okay, so by now your second panel is at the length where the panel reaches the bottom of your neck. Now for the first panel, this is where you started to add the straps up here, but for the back panel, the one that we're currently working on, we're going to do something a little bit different. I have my two panels stacked up on top of each other with the back panel on top. So this is the one that I'm working on. So I'm just going to line it up with the base of the neck right here. So basically, since this is lined up, we want to bring the neckline on the back panel up halfway to the straps. So right here, I just want to bring the neckline up to the middle of the strap. So you're going to count how many rows that you have for your straps. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to bring my neckline up to row 3. So I'll only do 2 rows of straps for the back panel. That means that I need to do 3 more rows and then I will start making the straps. So figure out how many rows you need to do to reach the halfway mark of the strap. So once you have figured that out, go ahead and make those additional rows. Okay, so as you can see, I have done my extra rows up until I have reached the middle of the straps. So now that the neckline on the back panel has been risen, we are going to make some short straps right here just to connect to the top. So I have 2 more rows I need to do to meet the top of my strap. So I'm going to make them three drunken granny stitches wide, just like I did for the straps on the front panel. And I'm just going to crochet those last 2 rows of straps.
Just to reiterate, you will start making the straps now and only crochet until you have reached the top of the straps from the first panel that you made. These straps on the back panel will be shorter, but they will meet the top of your straps. You will set up the straps the same exact way as you did for the straps on the front panel that you made. They should have the same amount of stitches in them. The only thing that will differ is how many rows of the strap you do, since we raised the neckline on the back panel. Now I have the 3 Drunken Granny stitch clusters that I use for my straps, so I'm just going to end the row by placing a double crochet in the space in between the next Drunken Granny stitch cluster. So just place a double crochet there, and then I'm going to chain 3 and turn my work. So you're making these straps exactly the same as you did on the front. They'll just be a little bit shorter. Make sure that when you get to the end, you place a double crochet into the starting chain, and then for me it was time to fasten off after 2 rows, but it might be a little bit different for you. So make sure to just crochet those shorter straps to meet the top of the straps on the front panel. When you finish the strap on the first side of the panel, go ahead, flip back over the right way, and you're going to make the other strap on the other side of the panel. You're going to set the strap up the exact same way that you did for the straps on the front panel. So just go ahead, reattach somewhere in the middle. For me, it was 3 Drunken Granny stitch clusters away from the side, because that's how many stitches are in my strap rows. And then once you reattach, you're just going to crochet as normal matching the same amount of rows as the other strap that you just made has. When you finish both of the straps on the back panel and have fastened off, go ahead and lay both of your panels on top of each other. I have the back panel on the bottom, and now I'm putting the front panel on top. Make sure to line up the top rows so that you can make sure everything is even. See how we brought the neckline up a little bit? That will help a lot with shaping, and it'll make this top look more professionally made because all tops have that back raised neckline. So again, just make sure that the panels are all lined up and that you have the same amount of rows in all of them. And now you are about ready to start sewing this panel together, and you're one step closer to finishing. To sew the panels together, we're going to start with the straps. So we're going to seam up top right here. I'm going to show you how to single crochet the panels together. That's just my preferred sewing method, but you can hand sew them together. It's really up to you, but I am going to show you how to single crochet the panels together just because that's the easiest way that I like to seam. To single crochet the panels together, you're just going to take your hook and make sure that you have that long tail that you left when you finished off the panel. So you're just going to insert your hook in between the starting chain and the Drunken granny square cluster, and then yarn over, and then you're going to place your hook through the hole. Yep, right there, that space in between the last double crochet of the other panel. So you have both panels on your hook. Go ahead and pull up a loop. There we go. So you have 2 loops on your hook now, and just pull through again, and there you go. So we're just going to continue single crocheting all the way down the row. Make sure that the stitches match up evenly. So when you insert your hook into a stitch on the front panel, that you're inserting your hook into the same stitch on the back panel. Let me go ahead and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So in this chain space here, that's the one that we have next. Just insert your hook there, pull up a single crochet, and then put your hook into the next stitch and the next stitch like that. And you're just going to continue doing that down the row. Insert your hook into a front panel stitch and then a back panel stitch, pull up a loop and single crochet. It's fairly simple, and I think it provides a pretty flexible seam, which I think is important for clothes. But yeah, and you don't have to sew. So this is a good method to use if that's what you're looking for. So just continue down the row. I'll go ahead and meet you at the end and show you how to fasten off. When you reach the end of the row seaming up, even though you have no more stitches left, we want to single crochet the end double crochets or the starting chains from that row together. So go ahead, place a single crochet in that space, chain 1, and then you're going to pull your long tail through the chain, and that is how you seamed up the top of the strap. So you'll go ahead and move on to doing the same method, single crochet or your preferred sewing method, onto the next strap. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you when you are ready to crochet the sides together. When you're ready to crochet the sides together, arrange the top so you can crochet from the armpit down. You will use the single crochet method or whatever your preferred sewing method is, just the same. Reattach here in the corner right before the decreasing starts, and you will go ahead and just work your way down. Again, if you're using the single crochet method that I showed you, you just single crochet exactly the same way. So instead of like putting the actual stitches together, you'll be crocheting where the ends of the rows are. So just make sure you put a double crochet into the next open spot. There's no exact number that you need. Once you have seamed up the straps, both of them, and the sides, both sides, everything should be seamed up. It should look like a real top now. You are going to weave in the ends. I know you don't want to do it, but just go ahead and do it now. You won't regret it later. Once you have weaved in all of the ends, flip the top inside out. As you're flipping it inside out, just make sure that all the edges get pulled out, especially by the armpit. You want to make sure that, it's not too thick in there and that the seams are all in the right spot, but you finished. Good job.
Well, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you love your sea glass top, and I'd love to see pictures of your sea glass top. You should follow me on Instagram at BigDreamCrochet. If you tag me in any of the pictures, I will definitely check them out, comment, reshare. I love seeing what you guys make. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this tutorial and want me to make and design more things like the sea glass top. And make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'll be releasing crochet tutorials all summer long. I have so many tutorials that I need to film for YouTube, and you don't want to miss any of them. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.